Yeah, my name is Arun, and as the slide says, the title of this talk is The Future of Bitcoin. So, oh, thank you. I wasn't expecting to show up over there. Yeah. So, I probably don't need to to tell you all this, but Bitcoin is in a little bit of trouble. Every 4 years, the cost that the cost it takes to mine the same amount of Bitcoin profitably doubles. And while this has been nominally okay because the price of Bitcoin has been up only, this has led to a solution where, in combination with the fact that the overall difficulty of mining Bitcoin is increasing, the asymptotic marginal block reward per hash per second is trending towards 0. So this has been fine so far, but what's going to happen if and when Bitcoin isn't profitable to mine anymore? We probably can expect the price of Bitcoin to double every 4 years repeatedly, potentially. I mean, maybe some of you do. I don't necessarily think it's the most robust kind of assumption to build a decentralized protocol and the world's hardest asset on top of. So what happens after two more happenings? What happens in the worst case scenario where the Bitcoin price kind of stalls out and hash power actually starts to decrease? Well, the answer is a catastrophic death spiral. And the thing which most people will say to you, or most hardcore Bitcoiners say to you in response to this is, well, it doesn't matter because we will increase the transaction fees on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will stay profitable to mine simply because miners will earn a bunch of transaction fees, and this will balance out the decreasing block rewards. If that were true, then we would probably see the transactions on Bitcoin increasing over time monotonically, the same as hash rate, and in fact, they're lower than they've been in a while. And aside from two speculation-driven bursts around ordinals and BRC20s, which I'll kind of get into a bit later, this has largely not been a good assumption to base the future of Bitcoin off of. So what do we do? Well, the answer is we have to move past block rewards as the primary source of miner revenue somehow. And how do we do this? The answer is that, sorry, I was just checking through a slide deck over there. Yeah, the answer is we have to increase transaction fees in some way, and we also have to increase Bitcoin's ability to natively generate yield to increase its attractiveness as an asset. So by doing this, we essentially make Bitcoin more attractive for people to buy, which increases the price, and we make it more profitable mine for miners. And the answer is, the good thing is that this has kind of already been happening to some extent. There's been a tremendous amount of interest in Bitcoin native assets and in novel financial instruments bootstrapped on Bitcoin. In early 2023, during the depths of the bear market, we saw activity on Bitcoin blow past almost every other L1 combined for ordinals and BRC20s. Another kind of encouraging data point is there's been a lot of interest in Bitcoin DeFi. For instance, when Babylon did their recent first cap launch, this led to a 120x increase in Bitcoin transaction fees for the 6 blocks that happened before the Babylon cap was reached. And this is exactly what we want to see for this transaction fee thesis to kind of play out. And we're also seeing real interest in Bitcoin as a hard asset and for yield. The Bitcoin ETF launch was the most successful in history in terms of inflows, which demonstrates a tremendous amount of excitement and interest about Bitcoin from all parts of the financial ecosystem. So what do we need to do from here? Well, the first is we need to increase Bitcoin yield somehow. So people will buy Bitcoin for the yield. And this means the price goes up, which obviously increases the mining reward. We need to increase Bitcoin's activity as a settlement layer, which increases its transaction fees, which also increases the mining rewards. And if we do these two things, then the hash rate of Bitcoin will continue to be up only, and Bitcoin's narrative store of value will remain unperturbed. And Bitcoin price will also increase up until its eventual terminal price of infinity. So this leads to a very new vision of what Bitcoin is. So rather than Bitcoin just kind of being like a rock that sits buried in your backyard, instead this becomes a much more kind of productive asset. This becomes a piece of hard collateral that enables you to bootstrap very complex forms of coordination. Things like new decentralized protocols, novel financial instruments, maybe even things like nation states and cities and political systems, on top of. This is obviously a very fantastical vision of the future of Bitcoin. So how do we kind of get there from here? Well, we have a lot of work to do. So as opposed to L1s like Ethereum or Solana, which have had years to bootstrap their smart contract ecosystems, and also we're kind of built for this to begin with. You know, they have kind of like enshrined mechanisms for Turing-complete computation. Bitcoin has none of that, which means a lot of these applications that you kind of need in order to enable a thriving DeFi ecosystem, things like L1 settlement, Turing-complete smart execution environment, sequencers, data layers, programmable liquidity, and so on and so on. These things like simply do not exist in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and you really need them to enable decentralized applications, things that we all kind of expect to see from existing kind of ecosystems, things like lending markets, DEXs, perpetual tradings, interest rate markets like Pendle, gaming, and you know, basically all this stuff kind of needs this surrounding infrastructure to even be plausible. And we also need it in order to further financialize BTC native assets in a fully trusted minimized and Bitcoin native way. Things like Bitcoin, ordinals, rules, BRT20s, we simply can't just expect to bridge this stuff over to Ethereum in order to DeFi on it. It's not a long-term solution. So where are we right now? Due to a tremendous amount of work that's been done by foundational protocols like Babylon, from like the enormous amount of Bitcoin layer 2 sidechains that have kind of been brought into existence over the last like year or two, and also with new forms of settlement, things like BitVM2, some of the work on things like Circle Stark from the Starkware team, and things like that. We've gotten kind of like some of the way to some of these things. You know, we're able to kind of settle on Bitcoin as L1. We're able to bootstrap execution environments that are Turing complete. Some of the roll-up infrastructure that we've come to expect has kind of come online. But a lot of the stuff that I have lower down here is still not fully possible to do. And I mean possible to do with in a fully trust minimized, robust, and decentralized way, at least without things like soft forks or extensive R&D in order to kind of make it work. And it's really hard. All this stuff is really hard to do. Bitcoin script was never intended for this. You're looking at things like huge transaction fee costs, like huge time to settlement. In some cases, it's not even economically feasible to do. And maybe even looking at things like I said, soft forks, stuff like that. So this is all very new. It's all very promising, but it's not something which is like fully plug and play yet. But we are kind of moving very quickly in the right direction. And in order to kind of get us there in a much faster way, what we kind of need is a way to like settle on Bitcoin as like a hard asset and a kind of pristine form of collateral without actually settling everything on the Bitcoin L1 itself in Bitcoin script. And a great primitive in order to enable us to do this is restaking. And I'm talking about restaking in the same way that's making a lot of headlines within the Ethereum ecosystem with protocols like EigenLayer and Symbiotic. But here I'm talking about doing it in a fully Bitcoin native way. And that brings me to a discussion of SatLayer and how this kind of fits into this vision I'm presenting about the future of Bitcoin. So SatLayer is a protocol which enables programmable slashing of restaked Bitcoin. And in that way, it enables Bitcoin restaking in the same way that you might expect restaking to occur within the EigenLayer ecosystem. So what does SatLayer actually rely on? So SatLayer actually relies on the foundational work being done on the protocols that I mentioned on the previous slides. Essentially, we need a protocol that allows you to secure a Turing-complete smart contract environment against equivocations in a way that only depends on the amount of Bitcoin that's being staked to secure that network. And all the protocols in the previous slide will kind of let you do that, but the one we kind of settle on is Babylon, which provides a property called slashable safety, which essentially means that you can slash for safety violations or fork attacks, as are more commonly known, of any kind of off-chain proof-of-stake service, which is secured by Bitcoin, which is staked directly on the Bitcoin layer 1 in the Babylon protocol. So that's where what SatLayer comes in, is that we sit on top of that layer and that very narrow form of settlement, and now we kind of use the full programmability of the layer that's being bootstrapped on top of it to allow off-chain services to express their conditions for slashing programmatically. So what SatLayer enables essentially is programmable slashing, and also on the other side, it allows people to stake Bitcoin against those services, also in a very flexible way. And this extends, like I said, the previous form of slashing, which is just against things like equivocation or against very narrow form settlement that are possible on the Bitcoin L1, to the universe of all possible slashing conditions that you might expect something like EigenLayer to be capable of, also with none of the kind of performance issues with both finality and cost and time that we see on the Bitcoin Layer 1. So how is this possible? So as I mentioned on the previous slide, using a protocol like Babylon to provide slashable safety, we can essentially build on top of smart contract layers that are bootstrapped on top of that network to provide this full programmable slashing functionality. So in more detail, Babylon's a protocol that allows you to stake Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Layer 1 and use it to secure, use that Bitcoin as stakeable collateral to secure the safety of off-chain proof-of-stake services. One of these services is Babylon's own Cosmos smart contract layer, which they use for things like timestamping. But we're able to build on top of it, essentially, to build a coordination layer, a set of smart contracts on top of that layer. And it's within these smart contracts that decentralized applications can register their off-chain services, which we call Bitcoin-validated services, or BVSs, to consume Bitcoin security in a fully flexible and programmable way. And yeah, so essentially, BVSs have all the functionality you expect of AVSs or active valid services with an EigenLayer ecosystem. The difference is this stack is fully Bitcoin native. We don't depend on Ethereum. The entire security model is based around just Bitcoin itself and a set of security assumptions on protocols that are built on top of Bitcoin. So let me dive deeper into the nuts and bolts of this protocol. So I've kind of zoomed in on what I've written in the previous slide here. Oh shit. Okay. I'm going to speed up a little bit. Yeah. So essentially, we have Bitcoin. We stake Bitcoin to Babylon. That is used to secure the Babylon Cosmos smart contract layer, as mentioned before. But how is that available to restakers in a way that can be staked against these off-chain services? Well, this comes in the form of two ways. The first in the form of Babylon LST protocols. So we have Babylon liquid stake tokens. So you have Babylon LST protocols that then stake Bitcoin on behalf of their users in Babylon itself, and they make that Bitcoin available in a tokenized form within the Babylon ecosystem, and specifically here within the Cosmos layer. That's one form of tokenized Bitcoin. The second is from simply other kinds of Bitcoin DeFi activities, things like layer 2s, other L1s, or merge mine sidechains, things like that. The participant ecosystems will also have their own form of tokenized Bitcoin, which they can then bridge into Babylon's smart contract layer. Interestingly enough, using potentially a BVS that's built on top of SatLayer. So this bridge essentially becomes more secure the more Bitcoin is kind of bridged over to the layer, which is an interesting flywheel. And then SatLayer is a coordination layer on top of all of this. So we have the ability for restakers to, in a non-custodial way, you can always withdraw anytime you want, delegate this Bitcoin that they bridged over to operators. You have the ability for dApp builders to build Bitcoin validated services to specify the conditions under which those services are settled, paid, and under which operators are slashed within SatLayer itself. And also the operators register which BVSs they want to validate. And this gets you a lot. This gets you the ability to build all of these functionalities, as all of these are also AVSs which are being built within the EigenLayer ecosystem, which means they're also possible within SatLayer by definition. You also are able to build a lot of stuff which can build other architectures much more simply, and also in kind of hybrid architecture ways, where you settle on Bitcoin for some of it, and you also use SatLayer to provide interesting guarantees on liveness, center persistence, lower cost, better time finality, things like that. And what I want to emphasize is that SatLayer is not competitive with the existing forms of Bitcoin yield generation. There's been a lot of work on making Bitcoin a yield generating asset. SatLayer sits downstream of all of that. So all your Bitcoin layer 2s, all your Bitcoin LSTs, Babylon, all these dApps, you could take the tokenized form of Bitcoin, which is being given to you by those applications, and then restake that in SatLayer for additional nodes on top of it. This yields a new money Lego stack. So now you can farm multiple protocols all at once by simply depositing the assets you get from protocols in SatLayer terminal step, and also as a result, increase the security of all its applications built on top of them, using the SatLayer protocol itself. And yeah, our app is live. We just launched it a couple weeks ago. We just also increased the cap, so feel free to stake within it. If you have some of these other assets like LBTC, you just saw Lombard present, or a few others. And yeah, if you want to, if you have interesting ideas for For BVSs, you are adapt to consume Bitcoin security or harden security in various ways using Bitcoin. Please reach out to us if you're interested in restaking. Also, please reach out to us. Or if you're interested in making memes or doing whatever, also please reach out to us. We raised money, so we're going to be around for a while. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.